For many a day of late, you felt a bit off, tired. But everyone is tired these days. Bored, certainly bored, with your thumbs aching from doom scrolling your various feeds, looking for something clever or useful, finding only trolls to fight. Screens are draining you and you're not sure it's possible to quit. What else is there in this life but this bluish glow of strangers chattering, demanding impossible tasks from one another? You're lonely, but what is new about that? You're of the era, same old story, some broken hearts behind you. Now all the prospects of swipe some alternative direction than you. There's other dating apps, there's meetups, there's solutions, as you're so often told. Problem feels too much born of your very blood and bones to just take a filtered photo, fake your way into having a partner. Doesn't seem right that you could just put all of this emptiness into a suitcase, hand it off to someone as a fair price for your sad eyes and limited repertoire of outdated movie references. There's a work. There's always a work. There's a heaviness on your painfully aching shoulders that still keep riding up towards your ears. On your soul, I guess. One evening, you feel particularly lost to yourself and recall that you have some time you could take away from the grind for your quote-unquote mental health. You've ignored it because they need you. Who else could fill out the complicated tracking forms correctly? Who else knows how to reset the router? Who else would follow your morning routine? Say hello to the old man who waits at the bus stop by your house before sitting for 8 hours in front of that screen, moving numbers. Tonight it feels like maybe your sanity is worth a day off. You could take a day. So you send that message to your boss. I need tomorrow off. Not sick, just a mental health day. A message comes back in an hour, and you squint as you check it, sort of hunched over, ready for some sort of denial, though you're not quite sure why. The reply reads, "Sure thing, we have it covered." And you sit, looking at that text for a moment, imagining that is actually probably true. And they've got it. So what are you doing with your life? What is this mental health day going to be? It could be anything. You lay down under your covers, running through certain scenarios. Clean the house top to bottom. Go see a movie. Go see family. Go run around the lake. Run into the lake. All of it feels like work. Thought occurs, when was the last time you felt like you were genuinely free and yourself? Thinking of this, slowly close your eyes. Start to fall asleep. Sometime later, you walk down an avenue. It rained in the early hours of the morning. Now the sky is cool and gray, but holding back any further downpours. No matter, you do already feel lighter, like you've forgotten your suitcase of emptiness at home. Safe, it's accounted for. But for now, you've decided to be a stranger in this town you've never visited before. To be a tourist an hour north of anywhere your routine has ever dared to take you. The town is quaint, is small, what most guidebooks would call eclectic. There are coffee shops, possibly overpriced boutiques lining its ivy and tree-filled thoroughfare. It feels like peaceful adventure, a feast for curious and intelligent eye. It reminds you of past versions of yourself that feel at times out of reach. Maybe you're not some mindless drone, just an office worker, just a beast of burden. Maybe you are just you, with aesthetic tastes and creative impulses. Maybe you don't need a shop catches your eye. The vast window reads in white script, scrolled beneath a white-lined illustration of a book. Bibliomancer. A white-lined raven flies overhead on the glass. A bookstore. It practically hums with some sort of positive energy. I find it almost impossible to turn away from. You open the door. Gentle tinkling bell rings. A murmur follows swiftly of customers convivially discussing the news of the day. Strong smell of coffee, and underneath that, a vanillin scent of old pages meets you at your first step. Once the door closes behind you, there's music, faint but prickling at your skin. And of course, true to its name, you see shelves and shelves and shelves of books. Some seem like recent bestsellers, some nearly too fragile to hold on to their bindings. Looking to your left, to your right, you see a sparse number of people paging through books as the hallways seem to continue almost indefinitely. lined by wooden ledges, delicately inked cards to indicate their contents. Strangely, at first glance you read the words on one of the cards: star-crossed lovers who co-own dimensionally dangerous pets. It doesn't make any sense, and yet the bookshelf is entirely filled. You shake your head quickly, amused but confused, and try and gain some proper bearings. You notice a woman sits on a stool behind a mahogany-topped coffee bar. Golden brown waves of hair pinned and coiled behind her head in a style and dress that suits someone from more than 100 years ago. That dress is covered by a black cotton apron embroidered with the same logo you've seen on the door. For a moment it seems almost silly. Such a clearly magical place has marketing, has contact with the modern world. She is beautiful by any standard anyone might have. Behind her, you see a conservatory space with cafe tables, plants, and even more books. Warmth exudes as light filters in through all angles, some of which don't even seem architecturally possible. You nod at her as she looks up from her own unmarked book and acknowledges your presence with an arched eyebrow. A smile follows, but a slight one that seems to mean almost anything. You commit yourself to looking around. For the first time in a long time, there is no rush, no clock or gun to your head, no next item on an agenda, no phone as you'd left that at home to even tell you so much as the time. Oddly, as you peruse the shelves, drawing book after book out by its spine and flipping open a page to gain some sense of whether you might want to take it home with you. Every page is blank. You turn your head, blinking. The people around you seem quite content with whatever they are reading, diligently stroking the pages, but you don't see any ink on them at all. Curious about this, if there's some sort of trick going on, you return to that coffee bar. The woman there, not looking up this time, she pronounces, as if half chanting, "Consult the terms, or we may rely on my expertise." You explain that you've already done that. Notably, every book you've taken a glance at has been blank. You see her raise her face and close her open book at the same moment, smiling curiously at you, praising you with something entirely different than a critical eye. You desire something to drink? She has not answered the point about the books, but you realize it's been some time since you've had anything to eat or drink, and you feel comfortable here, like it would be worth the drive to come up every Saturday, have a little coffee, settle in, read a book. If only. She's looking at you again. She points with a flowing gesture up to a frankly rather terse menu that reads tea, coffee, water, or at the shopkeep's suggestion. You inquire what at this shopkeep's suggestion would get you. She tilts her head, pleased that you have noticed and selected this. I'll provide you with what you need. And what you need is soothing, warming, and delicious. Something that brings back memories, those you don't mind remembering, and is just enough sweet and just enough rich to please that little voice in the back of your head that still wants, when all the world says you oughtn't to. I know this drink. It is something of a specialty. When the drink is done, a blackish plum-colored mug, thickly glazed so your mouth hangs gently on its lip, arrives across the bar. Steam rises from its surface, and you can't help but be brought back to yourself, to a certain happiness and childlike eagerness to taste that doesn't come to you at the dismal office coffee pot. Before you take a sip, you ask her what you owe for it. She waves you off. First, tell me if I have made it correctly. You take that first hot slurp and suddenly, truly, you wonder if you wouldn't pay everything in your wallet for the tender, kindly held feeling that runs through you. It seems almost a joke. The intimacy, sincerity, sense of being known, of running across the snow till your cheeks sting with the cold, and coming in, taking off your heavy coat and boots, and being given a hot chocolate, but richer, more nuanced. The taste stays with you even as the caffeine begins to give you a gentle lift. Oh, I see I have done well. It is simple then. You will trust me and allow me to do my work. Work. You turn your head and ask her what she means by work, taking another drink, but already thinking about what the protocol would be to order a second cup. You have come to my home, the Bibliomancer. There is only one book here for you, only one single book that will be readable to you. Just as this drink was yours, so it is in my library. The hum of the lights that seem to be plotted in electric candles and lamps and fixtures haphazardly throughout grows stronger, and all the other sounds become a bit more faint. You can see other customers drinking from delicate china and looking down into books, but they seem a bit blurry now. An impressionist painter's take on a busy shopper, somehow always in motion. Come with me and we shall find it. Her long fingers run across each fabric binding, each title, books old and new, bookshelf by bookshelf, hundreds of them. You follow behind her, behind the voluminous skirt, whose hems drag along the tiled and occasionally hardwood flooring. Unsure of yourself in this moment. Is she real? Is this place real? Maybe your mental health day was more urgent than you had realized. Eventually, she pauses. You read the red ink on the tag that she does not for this shelf. Books for those who have lost their shiniest marble down the drain pipe of life. You almost chuckle. You would tell your therapist this if you had one. Her fingers rove and roam over this shelf. She is humming a hypnotic sort of melody, and you feel it as you listen to it. Begin almost humming along, if only in your own head. And as you do, it is hard to concentrate on the aches and the sourness you thought was so much a part of you. If this is a ploy, a gag, a punking, you don't mind it. She stops short again. The song stops abruptly, and her fingertips appear to find a book. She nods once, as if answering a question she had within, and draws the book from overhead down to her. You try and look over her shoulder, but see no words. With a flick of her wrist, she encourages you to follow her back to the conservatory. Notably now, there is no one else here. The cafe tables have disappeared, and what remains is a coffee table surrounded by a soft green velvet sofa. And in front of that, bathed in now afternoon light, is a low marble dais. Upon this, she whirls and perches like some sort of gargoyle. The sofa is clearly meant for you. Give me a number. You sit down on the sofa and give her the first number on your mind. And she opens a page, and with not a moment of pause, recites, "These 3 children on the summer, they know the wood as surely as they know the micro-landscapes of their own crazed knees. Put them down blindfolded in any dell or clearing, and they could find their way without putting a foot wrong. This is their territory, and they rule it wild and lordly as young animals. They scramble through its trees and hide and seek in its hollows all the endless day long and all night in their dreams. Tana French in the woods. It means something to you, does it not?" She closes the book and closes her eyes as if she too is imagining something far away, trying to find her way into it. She looks not unlike a Victorian Galadriel, energy running off her hair, through her fingers. You are momentarily bewitched. You run the quotation over in your mind, gives you a visual and deep sense of possibility. Memories of being a child, when there was no question of ownership of self, of comfort in who you are. If this was the message this library has to offer you, if this is your prescription or the fortune cookie broke open today, some young animal alive and unaware of great resignations and hybrid work policies, feels vital, almost tangible. Your book. You feel inherently this is the book for you, the one you must read. It's just a book, but it's yours. When you ask its price, again she waves you off. This is a one book at a time sort of deranged marketing scheme. It seems incredibly ineffective. She slides down from this pedestal, straightens her skirts, and whatever channeling drives her is complete and gone. Even the afternoon light seems to recalibrate and soften. As she hands the book to you, eyes narrow in once more, like she's making a calculation of risk. My name is Amelia. I am a force, a being. This place is a construct. It is a bookstore. Truly, it receives mail, it sells books, it makes coffees, pays taxes. But it is also my eternal prison. You blink at her, absorbing this, looking around and seeing no one, hearing only a soft, easeful music. Whether or not you believe her, it is difficult to look away from her. Eyes begin to glow as though white light replaces her dark pupils. I must explain, or else all is lost. You ask her in no uncertain terms what she is. What is a Bibliomancer? I am an intersection of everlasting truth and ephemeral existence. I draw together coastlines into a kiss of meaning. I'm a mouthpiece of the divine and the arcane, sourceless forces that drive our destiny. I'm the child of the muses and their mortal lovers. I look into you and I know your pain and your search for meaning that can take you deep within yourself. You ache for a quest that is yours and yours alone. I am also a passable barista. You tell her that maybe all of that is true, particularly about being great with the coffee, but it's not precisely an answer. She looks ruefully at the glass of the conservatory walls. Who am I? I began here. It was 1784, a memorable year in some human quarters. If I was before or knew before, all sense of me begins then. At that desk, with that book open, and it's set before me, with no doubt to its purpose. It is a light thing for whoever keeps his foot outside trouble, to advise and counsel him that suffers. Aeschylus, a single quotation, but it was a hell of a thing. I could not deny the truth of what I read. To know the meaning of what was demanded of me was devastating. Well, this and the fact that whenever I took a step outside the door, one step beyond, looking down this rainy and dreary street, I would appear back before the book, some new epigram before me, exhausted, weakened, and with some new piece of wisdom to digest. But no escape. All the time, I was quite furious. Furious as a Maynard. I tore books. I threw them into the fireplace. I screamed until I drove my throat bloody and silent. But like some caged bird, I am here. And over time, the books I thought I'd burned returned to their shelves, unmarred by my hands. And I began to will this place to match my understanding. To have it become a place of kindness and knowledge. And books appeared on empty cases. A kettle arrived for the tea. This velvet sofa you sit upon. Morning by morning, it would grow more beautiful around me, where I did not know how to begin. A quotation would often guide my imagination. It was designed purely out of a desire of kindness for myself. If I could do no more than furnish my pen, I felt certain I ought to make it beautiful. She leans in towards you, and eventually the first soul arrived and knocked at the door. You can almost see in your mind's eye as she describes the first customer of the Bibliomancer bookstore. He was brooding, his hair dark, as though he had emerged from some dark hell to find himself at my door. You remind me a bit of him, I think. His keen, searching eyes. I did not know what to do for him. He said, as prophetically as anything I could offer, "What do my old books say?" And so I ran my fingertips over the shelves, touching every binding, eyes closed until some time had passed. But in that moment, there was a thin little tome within reach that I felt was the only book that could reach him. And I grabbed it out. It seemed to me that perhaps the man would have disappeared with this waiting, but instead I asked him the number of the page upon which we would find the answer. And there I began reading, feeling almost overtaken by something well beyond me. Something for the first time since myself and the bookshop came into being, that spoke of home. And then you continue. And then he stole the book. Can you imagine? A decade of mortals known only to me by their stories, and yet the instant I meet one, he surprised me and infuriated me, of course. It took a terrifyingly long time to begin again. I closed the door on the bookshop for longer than you could imagine. I simply existed between sleep and breath, a mote of dust suspended in the air. She inclines her head towards you, exhales a soft sigh, but eventually I found my reason was simply just my curiosity, and I reopened the door. From there, much has unfolded before me, and my work of advising those who seek the wisdom of my library is now again that light thing. But if you ask me to be honest, and I see by your eyes that you do, I am still curious about what the book thief stole and why. You shake your head, incredulous at her story, not sure how to respond to her. A quiet moment passes between you two. You find it hard to believe me. It is more than reasonable to doubt, but it is enough for me to have told someone the burden. I wanted only to be heard, and you have given me the gift of your time. That is no small gift. You look around, nodding. As much as you would rather not be seen by people you don't care to understand, co-workers, sometimes even strangers on the street. The act of being perceived often feels painful and judgment cruel. This made sense to you. Maybe this is real, and you had empathy for this strange and supernatural creature sitting with plaintive eyes in front of you. You find yourself saying, well, maybe I could help you. Maybe we could find you your answer in the library. A book for me? Do you imagine how many cups of tea I have poured? How many peerless novels selected from the archives? And no recipient of my services has ever deigned to imagine my own curiosity in this regard. I did think you were special. She stands and gestures around. Of course, this is magic. It is done upon request and solemn intention. It is not mine to wander the shelf seeking what I am sure will be only a firm reiteration of my purpose. To remain here, to serve those who arrive with gentle revelation and celestial comfort. And this I know well enough. You tell her that perhaps now is the time to see if that is true, really true. She nods in a sad but humbled agreement. Walk with me then. Together you walk down the hallways, her fingers again reading the spines, awaiting for whatever moment or sensation drives the Bibliomancer's intuition. Eventually again, she stops, not looking at the book she selects, though you see a purple cover. You follow her back to the table in the conservatory, her eyes keen, her hands almost shaking as she sets the book in front of you. Terry Pratchett. You laugh at her blank expression, clearly unaware of the comic, clever writer she has somehow chosen. For a moment again, you imagine somehow she is putting you on. What is this? Do you know it? You choose the number then. You tell me what is true. You say into the air, same way you did before, with no particular thought or plan. 23. Thumbs the pages. Why do you go away? So that you can come back. So that you can see the place you came from with new eyes and extra colors. And the people there see you differently too. Coming back to where you started is not the same as never leaving. Every budget, a heart full of sky. You recognize this book. Tear slips down her cheek and onto the paperback's words. A message for Sport. No, I have to leave. Whether or not you will help me, I will find a way. I just know that getting that book back, or seeing that book thief again, will play a part in it. I need to see this place with new eyes, or leave it behind forever. You realize that as long as Amelia has been here, surrounded by books, aside from her book of epigrams, she can only read one where she's drawing a prediction from it. She's almost drowning in escapes. Can only take a sip of fresh water when someone visits for reading. She seems as exhausted as you have ever been, as tired of her lot as you were when you last logged into your work computer. Bone tired, marrow sick, with these centuries facing these walls. Only one book, one glimpse of a humanity worthy of her at a time. You reach out and pat her shoulder to offer some degree of comfort, or simply that you know some small part of the isolated heartbreak she holds. She is silent. You start up from the sofa, awkward and unsure of your feet beneath you. You turn and look back towards the door. Her voice catches you, quiet but tremulous, excited. Will you help me? Help me to find this book, this city, my way out. He's hidden away somewhere in some plane, some tram of dream and some apothecary out there on the astral sea. Somehow, I don't believe anyone else can do this for me but you. At least not anyone who has visited with me in the last 100 years. You tell her you have no idea how you could help her, even if, in the moment, a certain confidence rumbles in your mind. Things changing. They have changed. You are the sort of person who always did want more, who wanted to leave and come back different. Maybe this is real. You return to the sofa. You find a way to convince him to give it to you, bring it back himself. Surely he's finished reading it by now. If you were mad enough to even think about trying to do this, how would you begin? You ask, is there a map? Is there? You've already become a planeswalker, a dream traveler. Sleep is a vast web of connection. Consider it. I will be in no additional pain if you do not return with it. but I imagine you will not find giving up on this adventure to sit easily within your soul. You nod and sigh in agreement, and notice a little ripple in your vision, a wavering of your sight. Sudden and unbidden, a tired yawn escapes your lips, and you stretch, leaning down to put your head on the arm of the sofa, curling up your legs towards your chest. Above you, the Bibliomancer draws a soft chenille blanket over you, even as warm beams of sunlight dance across your form. Before you go, I wanted to say thank you. You have been kind to me. I awoke this morning not particularly expecting this. A failing on my part. Too many years as a bird in this cage. She reaches into a pocket in the striped silk of her skirt, hands you a cream-colored card with oxblood writing. On one side, you see the embossed logo of the Bibliomancer. On the other, as you flip it, is a signature that reads, Amelia de Crèvecœur. You curl it into your fist. Be careful to whom you give this card. Be sure they are worthy of such a visit as you were, and it may help you in some way I cannot predict in the dangers ahead. Dangers, you think. You settle into the green velour of the sofa, feeling suddenly the sensation of your sheets as you draw up and coil into the warmth of the chenille. Your own comforter seems to mold to your shape. You can still feel the coffee on your tongue, but not as a caffeinated jolt, just a soft, nutty aftertaste, pleasing to the palate. You are here. You can feel the business card pressed into your palm, but you're also in the life that you know. What did Amelia say? You find yourself at an intersection. As easily as anything, you could fall back asleep in your bed and wake up with this all behind you. But you could, instead, choose to fall asleep here, on this couch, in this dream, and take up the quest of the stolen book. Whatever that means. It means something to Amelia, at least. As you close your eyes, the decision is firmly made. More adventures of the Dream Traveler. Visit us again next week.